and welcome to the Fancy Nancy Book Club. Come on in. Have you been back to school yet? I have. I had my first day and it was so fun. So I thought, let's just continue talking about school at the book club. So I wore my back to school ooh la la shirt so we could celebrate all the fun things about school. My backpack is full of fun school books that I want to share with you. Did you know in the library there are so many books about school? I could have brought 20, but I know that would be too long of a show. So here we go with the very first one. It's a character that you are familiar with that we have featured many times on the Fancy Nancy Book Club. It's Amelia Bedelia, one of our old favorites. And we know that her books are always written by Peggy Parrish and illustrated by Lynn Sweat. In this book, Teach Us, Amelia Bedelia gets caught in a very big misunderstanding. Misunderstandings are very confusing times. You see, Mrs. Rogers, that's the lady that Amelia works for, called and said, Amelia, can you go down to the school and tell them the new teacher is not here yet? I'm supposed to pick her up and she's not here. So Amelia goes down to the school and tells the principal. Well, she tries to tell the principal, but he assumes, and assumes is a fancy word for he thinks he's got it figured out, and he assumes that Amelia is the new teacher. So he takes her to a classroom full of rowdy children. There is no behavior going on in this class except misbehavior. The children are all up out of their seats, throwing paper airplanes. Boy, it's not like that at my school, and I hope it's not like that at your school. At my school, we have learning going on. Poor Amelia, she doesn't know what to do with these children, so she starts reading some plans that were left for the teacher, and she discovers that the children are supposed to do some reading, and they start their reading, and it's very quiet in the classroom. Amelia doesn't understand. She thinks reading always means reading aloud or out loud. And so she tells the children, start reading out loud, I can't hear you. Ooh, what a noise that makes. And she's glad when reading time is over. Then, just as you think things are going to be okay, math time comes, and the children have problems about apples. If John had 4 apples and Pat took 2, how many would be left? We've all done problems like that. But Amelia is confused and thinks that because there are no real apples in the classroom, they can't do the math. So one little boy says, hey, I got apples at my house. So they all set out and go to his house to do their math. What is going to happen to Amelia Bedelia when the principal finds out she's not the real teacher? What's going to happen when the principal discovers the class is gone? They're not even at school. Oh, Amelia, I think she's done it this time. She's in big trouble. She seems to always get out of it, but I don't know about this one. You'll just have to check this book out to find out. The next book is also about school. It's about a dog and school. It's called Little Lucy Goes to School. Sometimes when we see dogs and cats and animals in books, we think it's going to be really made up, like the dogs talk and the cats talk, and some stories are like that. But in this story, Lucy behaves like a real dog. She can't talk. She just barks and jumps and acts like a real puppy. So we call this realistic fiction. It is a made-up story, but it really could happen. It's by Nene Cooper, and the illustrations are beautiful. They're by John Kanzler. I love the way he draws Lucy. On this particular day in Lucy's family, the mother of the little boy she lives with forgets to give the lunch to Bobby. Bobby goes on to school, and after he's gone, Mom discovers the lunchbox is gone. So she grabs up the lunch and she grabs up Lucy and she heads to school to take Bobby his lunch. And here she is in the office. That's probably the school secretary there. And the secretary says, "I'll be glad to take the lunch down to Bobby." This would seem like a good idea, but just when Mom reached to give the lunch to the lady, Lucy jumped out of her arms. And wouldn't you know it, this is a day that Mom forgot the leash. So there's Lucy running through the school. Have you ever had a dog in your school? Well, we'll talk about that in just a little bit. But here are the children, and they are amazed because there's a dog, not on a leash, running through the hallway. "Lucy, you don't run at school." And then, before anyone can catch her, Lucy runs to the cafeteria. And look, she manages to take a sandwich from the lunch lady. And then she wanders to the library. What is going to happen to Lucy? Will Bobby get in trouble because his dog is acting up at school? Well, boys and girls, I want to tell you that you should not be surprised if you see a dog in your school sometime. Service dogs are becoming much more obvious in our lives. We see people who need service dogs for different reasons, and there might be students in your school that need a service dog too. If you ever see a service dog, remember they are working, and you must not go up and play with them unless the owner says it's all right. But Lucy, she has not been trained to be a service dog. She's just being naughty. I hope everything turns out all right for Mom and Bobby, and most of all for Lucy. Do you ever hear stories about people at school? Do people try to scare you by saying, "Oh, you don't want Mrs. Jones for your teacher. She's really mean." And then when you meet Mrs. Jones, you realize she is not really mean. That child was just trying to scare you. Well, there are always stories about people at school that people make up. And this is one of a series of books about school workers from the Black Lagoon. I don't know where the Black Lagoon is, but I think it's supposed to be a scary place with monsters. So this author talks about different people at school, the principal, the teacher, the bus driver. There are like 20 books about scary people at school, and none of them are really scary. The author is Mike Thaler, and the pictures, the scary pictures, are drawn by Jared Lee. And in this story, the cafeteria lady from the Black Lagoon, the children are getting a new cafeteria manager in their school, and they have heard stories about her. Here are some of the things they've heard. They have heard that her name is Wanda Belch, belch like a burp, and that she drives to school in a garbage truck. Look at that nasty, ugly garbage truck. It even has a poison symbol on it. Boys and girls, people would not come to school in anything looking like that. But sometimes our imaginations run away with us, and we can think of very funny things. Another thing they've heard about Mrs. Belch is that she learned to cook on a pirate ship with wild pirates. Ew, look at some of the food that they have and how sloppy they're eating it. Do you think Mrs. Belch really learned to cook for pirates? I hope not. And then they heard that it would be better to get a big math test or a vaccination like a shot than to eat in the cafeteria. Here all the boys and girls are lined up to go into the cafeteria. They haven't seen Mrs. Belch yet, and the illustrator draws green things coming out like it was stinky smells. But it's time for lunch, and I hope these boys and girls get something yummy to eat. I'm not going to show you what Mrs. Belch looks like. I bet you're imagining her right now. But to see if you're right, you will need to check out this book, Cafeteria Lady from the Black Lagoon. And if you like it, on the back it tells us that there is one about an art teacher, a bully, a computer teacher, a new kid, and a school bus driver, and many more. I think you'll enjoy them. The next story has imagination in it too. It's a book I had never seen before. It's new to me. It's called Dad School. In this story, there's a little boy and his dad, like on the cover, and he's getting ready to go to school. His father tells him that he went to school too when he was a little boy. But the little boy thinks, I bet your school was different. I bet you went to Dad School to learn how to be a father. He imagines his dad lining up with all the other dads going into Dad School. Wonder what things the dads learn there. Well, one of the things they learn is how to mend leaky faucets. Is your dad good at that? They also learn how to make delicious sandwiches and how to cover boo-boos when they happen. That would be a different school. And one of the funniest things the boy imagines, it was my favorite page of all. He imagines that at Dad's school, they try to learn how to sing along with old songs on the radio. My dad does that, and he sounds awful, but it's so funny we just crack up. Does your dad do that too? Oh, maybe we need earplugs. Well, there's more to this book about what dads learn and what happens at Dad's school, but it got me thinking. Wonder if we could think of other stories about people going to school. If there's a dad's school, what if there was a mom's school? What would mommies have to learn at school? What about grandmas and granddads? What would they have to learn before they have grandchildren? And what about aunts at aunt school? Do they learn how to give sloppy wet kisses and squeeze you till you're about to pop? I don't know, but wouldn't it be fun to imagine? And maybe you can think of someone in your family and imagine what kind of school they went to learn the things that they do with you and for you. I think that would be a lot of fun. Rebecca Van Slyke is the author of this book, and Patricia Burris is the illustrator. I hope it inspires you. Inspires is a fancy word that makes you want to do something. And I hope this book inspires you to write your own imagination stories. The next book I have for you is going to have to wait because we're going to take a break and hear from our friends at Tell Me a Story, and we'll be right back.